All right, everybody, with season 5 of Black Clover Mobile on global just 7 days away, we are going to be getting a new custom pickup banner. Well, actually, it might already be out for you depending on what servers you are playing on, but basically on this custom pickup banner, it will be starting on the 29th of February and run up until the 7th of March. And then on the 7th of March, we will be getting the season 5 banner. So the characters that are going to be featured on this banner are these characters here. We will not have the new Despair Veto though, and we will also not have Gildray on this banner. We will, however, have here, who is going to be like sought out by a lot of people, especially if you're planning on getting Witch Queen this season, because he works very well with like Black Asta and Witch Queen. We are also going to have Kyato and Kahono on this banner. We are also going to have Raya and Fauna and Licht and all those other good characters on this banner too, as well as Longris. I know some people might want Longris, but let me just say this is like the biggest bait banner. You do not want to summon on this banner if you can help it, because we do have season 5 right around the corner, and then potentially after season 5, we are going to have Fauna, Hateful Fauna, and Witch Queen, who are very, very hyped. So let's take a look at what's coming up in the game. So this is an image pulled from the data mine. It is a season 5 custom pickup banner potentially. So it's looking like potentially you're going to be able to get Magna and Charlotte as well as a custom pickup of your choice, since we're not going to have a third unit, but I don't think this is right. Okay, I could be wrong, but I think it is just going to be like the normal Magna and Charlotte here on this banner. Both very good characters. We'll talk about their kits here in a minute. Charlotte is kind of the one that you want to go for out of the two though, if you had to pick one with your key. But yeah, potential there is potential for a third custom pickup unit, maybe. I don't know. This is a weird image, and even like in the data mine, the person who data mined this, it seemed like they weren't quite sure what's going to go on with that. But just want to let you guys know the potential of having like another character that you can add on to that custom pickup draw is there. So that's kind of cool if that's actually going to be the case, but we'll have to see. And then of course there is the season 5 paid banner, where you will be able to get the characters just like we've had for the other seasons. So if you want to buy premium black crystals, that would be this banner right here. And then midway through season 5, I don't have an exact date for this banner, but we do have confirmed that Fauna is going to have a paid step up banner. We actually don't have images yet though for Fauna's regular banner, as well as the Witch Queen banner that we are expecting to come. So Witch Queen is actually not necessarily confirmed for season 5 yet, but it is what everybody's expecting. Everybody's expecting the dual unit to be Fauna and Witch Queen, just like how last season we had Gildray and Despair Veto. It would only make sense, right? And this Fauna is actually an insanely good unit. So this is going to be one of the like mid-season polls where you guys are absolutely going to want to pull. Season 5 is going to be very, very big for most players because Charlotte is really good. Magna is actually pretty decent for the seasonal characters. This Fauna is insanely, insanely good. And then Witch Queen is like almost a necessity if you're going to be playing the Black Asta meta. So there's just all 4 of those characters. Basically, you're going to need them, which is crazy, and it's rough to be a free-to-play player, but hey, pay-to-play players, you got a lot to look forward to. We're going to take a look at all these characters' kits and maybe try to figure out like an order of like who to go for first and foremost, because honestly, it's a difficult situation and choice for you guys. So starting with Ceremony Charlotte, she is S tier right now on KR and JP for PvE. She is S plus tier for PvP. She is just an insanely good unit. She is a sense type unit, and you'll see why she's good as we go through her kits. So her skill 1 is called Thornvine Sword, and it grants a SP plus 1 buff to the ally with the highest attack. That's insanely good. Every time you use skill 1, you are giving your highest attack attacker an SP plus 1 to give them their ultimate back faster. That is just crazy. That is absolutely insane. That's skill 1. That's a really good skill 1. Skill 2, Blessing of Thornvine. Charlotte creates Thornvines, buffing a single ally. It grants a designated ally a SP plus 2 buff. It grants a designated ally debuff immunity for 1 turn, and a 40% chance to reduce your own skills 2 cooldown by 1 turn. So you have the potential to be able to get this skill back up right away, which is crazy. And you can increase that percentage as you upgrade the skill from 40%, which is just even more insane, right? So you could potentially be using skill 2 every turn on an ally to give them SP +2 and also to give them debuff immunity. That is really, really good as a supporter type unit. And then if we go a little bit lower for the special skill, Blessing of Blue Rose, she grants all allies a 30% reduced damage taken buff for 2 turns. She grants a defense penetration level 3 buff to the ally with the highest all attack for 2 turns. And then if an ally has a barrier, grants them an extend barrier duration by 1 turn as a buff. That's just really, really good. And then you can reduce the damage taken even more if you upgrade this skill, which is just freaking, it's so good. It's so good. So much utility, giving specials back, giving defense penetration, extending barriers, right? That's crazy good. And then for the combined attack, attacks after granting the partner mage 100% of own max HP as barrier for 2 turns. It's just really, really good stuff. And then if we go down to the passives, right? So the unique passive here, if all allies belong to the sense attribute at the beginning of the battle, grants all allies 80% of own max HP as a barrier for 1 turn. And then so you get that barrier for 1 turn, and then if she goes, you can extend that barrier to 2 turns, which is really, really good. And then if you have other barrier characters, it's just, it gets crazy, right? Her passive at LR +2, meaning you have gotten 2 dupes into her, every turn grants the ally with the highest all attack a barrier equal to 50% of own max HP for 2 turns. And then at LR +5, every turn grants the ally with the highest all attack a barrier equal to 50% of own max HP for 2 turns. And then also grants self taunt immunity, which is just amazing. So she's going to be a very, very good unit, one that you are going to want to get. So for the key, I recommend using it on her over Magna because she's just an insanely good support unit and she's going to be versatile in both PvE and PvP. Magna is the other character featured on the Season 5 banner. It says Season 6 here because it was Season 6 for JP and KR, and now unfortunately he is only A tier right now in PvE and PvP for KR and JP, but like A tier is still good, right? And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I really, really want this Magna. Out of the 2 characters, the Charlotte and the Magna, I want Magna more just because he's the first Magna in the game. Like he's sick, he has good animations, I really like his kit. It's a little bit gimmicky, but I really like it. He is an attacker unit, but if you were to ask me like which one's better and who should I go for in terms of like who's better, who's more meta, then yeah, you're going to want to go for Charlotte. But if you just want to go for someone fun and quirky, I think Magna is a pretty good character. So let's talk about what he can do. His skill 1 is called Fire Swing, and if an enemy is taking continuous burn damage, inflicts continuous burn damage for 2 more turns, and then inflicts burn on an enemy dealing continuous damage for 2 turns. That's stacking burn damage on a skill 1. That is really, really good. And then his skill 2 is another single target attack. If an enemy is taking continuous burn damage, inflicts continuous burn damage for 2 turns, inflicts burn on an enemy dealing continuous damage for 2 turns. That is just more stacking burn damage on skill 2 with a little bit more damage. Skill 1 and skill 2 very similar in what they do. But yeah, that's just a lot of burn. And why does the burn matter? Well, it all comes down to the special skill here. The special skill is kind of what makes Magna as good as he is and what makes me really like him. So as we read through this, it's crazy. Tough Guys Hardcore Training is what it's called. Attacks after removing an enemy's barrier. So guaranteed barrier removal, even if they have a barrier up. For every instance of continuous burn damage on an enemy that they are taking, attacks after granting a 40% increased damage dealt buff. Now that may not sound like a lot, but if you are running him on a burn team and running him properly, you could have like 3, 4, 5 stacks of burn damage on an enemy, and you could do that 40% per stack, which can be an insane amount of damage. So basically, if you build your team right and you're running Magna on the right team, then he is going to be able to nuke one character of your choice, regardless of if they have a barrier. And then when he does nuke that enemy, you are going to get an extra turn, where then you can go and put more burn stacks on other enemies, right? So that's all really, 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 really solid. His combined attack is not anything too special because it does the same thing as his special skill, attacks after removing an enemy's barrier. Like, you'll probably never use this because you're going to be wanting to use his special skill because it does the same thing, but it does it better. And then like upgrade priority, you're probably, I'll talk about it more when I do his build guide, but you're probably going to want to be upgrading his special skill because, like, once again, that is what makes this kit. He is insanely good. And then if you look at his unique passive, at the start of battle, inflicts continuous burn damage on all enemies for 2 turns. So without even having other burn characters on your team, you could potentially make use of that extra 40% damage. It's not going to be super crazy, but you will have a burn stack on them if you are going if he goes first in the turn, right? So it's crazy. I think it is going to be better, though, if you can run Magna on a team where the rest of your allies are faster than him. They are burn characters. You get more burn stacks, and then you go with Magna last and do his big amount of damage, because that's going to just give you more damage dealt. So ideally, you probably want to run Magna with someone like maybe Voltos to speed up your team so your team is faster than the enemy team, but so that Magna is not faster than your own team. So you actually kind of want him to be slower. And then for the passive, if you get dupes into him at LR +2, that's 2 dupes, upon attacking an enemy taking continuous burn damage, inflicts a stun status element for 1 turn. Bro, it just gets better, right? That's so good. That's so good. And then at LR +5, you get the same thing, and then also applies stun immunity to yourself. And then this part is crazy. Permanently. So Magna, a very good character. I think highly underrated. Charlotte is just like so phenomenally good that Magna just kind of goes to the wayside, but like don't sleep on this character. He's actually pretty good. Next up, we have Fauna the Hateful. She is once again confirmed to be coming out in Season 5 as the mid-season unit, and she is going to be a Sense type character. She is going to fit very, very well with Season 5 Charlotte. So putting those two together is really, really good, and they're, notice, both S tier characters. S+ for PvE and S for PvP for Fauna. So let's talk about what she does. I really like this character. Harpy is her skill 1. It applies 1 instance of hatred to self. When using a special skill, performs an extra attack that deals increased damage based on the number of hatred stacks. This effect is maintained between waves. Attacks after granting a 35% increased damage dealt buff if the enemy has an active taunt. And then for this pincer movement, it is an AoE attack, applies 2 instances of hatred to self, inflicts burn on an enemy dealing continuous damage for 2 turns. So you can get hatred from this skill, and you can also get hatred from this skill. And that is 3 hatred right there. And if we go a little bit lower and look at her special skill, how does the hatred affect all that? Well, it's crazy, right? So this is an AoE attack, inflicts barrier removal on a random ally. Okay. I don't, was it ally or enemy? I can't remember from when I played on JP. That might not be 100% accurate right there in the translation. Keep that in mind. If hatred is not present on self, performs an extra attack, dealing damage equal to 30% of attack and magic attack. Now, if hatred is present on self, performs an extra attack to deal damage based on the instances of hatred. Okay. And so, based on the hatred that you have, if you have 1 hatred, it deals 50% of attack and magic attack as damage. 2 stacks, 70%. 3 stacks, 100%. 4 stacks, 130%, and 5 stacks, 180%. 180% of attack and magic attack is insane for an AoE skill. That is crazy good, and I'm like 90% sure this is meant to say inflicts barrier removal on a random enemy. If I remember from my time, because I actually have her on my JP account, it's I'm pretty sure it removes it from a random enemy, so that it wouldn't make sense to remove it from an ally, right? So that just makes the most sense. So she's got barrier removal on a random enemy, and she can do 180% of damage AoE to the entire enemy team. That is really, really good. Like, her nuke potential for an entire enemy, insane, really, really good. And then her combined attack inflicts taunt on an enemy for 1 turn. So she has taunt, she has a giant AoE nuke, which is really good, removes barriers. She stacks hatred to give herself more damage, which carries over between waves and can stack up to 5 times. It can't really be removed as of yet. And then she also has burn, which is really good, and then increased damage on skill 1 if the enemy has an active taunt. So just a lot of good stuff going on for Fauna. And then her unique passive is even better, because if all allies have the sense attribute, grants status element immunity to all allies for 1 turn at the beginning of battle. So you are just immune to status elements. She is insanely good. And then for her passive, if you get dupes into her, LR +2, when 5 hatred stacks are on you, your HP is lowered to 1% HP. However, you get immortality for 1 turn, and you heal for 50% HP at the end of a wave. And then at LR +5, same thing, heal for 50% at the end of a wave. And then when taunt or enhanced taunt are applied, receive 50% damage reduction for 1 turn. So she is just a very, very interesting character, a very fun character to play, I feel like. And once again, she is going to work out really well with Season 5 Charlotte. Okay, we got one more character to take a look at. The last character we have to look at is Witch Queen, and it's kind of funny that she's a healer when she can reduce Black Asta's health to like nothing, but she is S tier in PvE and PvP, and I feel like without Black Asta, she wouldn't be as good as she is, so just keep that in mind. You might not want her as much if you don't have him. Hopefully you guys did get Black Asta though. His skill 1, or her skill 1, I apologize, is called Grasp of Fresh Blood. Inflicts bleed on an enemy, dealing continuous damage for 2 turns, and then grants HP recovery equal to 15% of own max HP to a defender ally specifically. Like, tell me that isn't designed for Asta, right? And then her skill 2, AoE attack, Chamber of Blood, 50% chance to inflict continuous poison, bleed, and burn damage on an enemy for 2 turns. That is a lot going on there. That's a lot of stacked damage. That's actually really pretty dang good. And then for her special skill, Bloodstain of Destruction, it is an AoE attack, inflicts bleed on an enemy, dealing continuous damage for 3 turns, grants 50% lifesteal to all allies for 2 turns, which is really good. That lifesteal is really, really good. And then here's the crazy part though, sets the HP of one ally with the highest defense to 30% of max HP. Why is that important? Well, if you have Asta on your team, Black Asta, he is clearly going to have the highest defense, and when he drops below 40% health, he gets anti-magic. Well, you can do that turn 1 now, give him anti-magic, and nuke the enemy team if you have Black Asta. So that's why everybody wants Witch Queen, because she can immediately get him to 30% health, which is crazy, crazy good. And then combined attack grants the partner mage HP recovery equal to 60% of their max HP. That's actually one of the better combined healer attacks because it does give so much HP recovery. That is actually very, very solid. So overall, Witch Queen, insanely good, but her main gimmick here is that for Black Asta. And then if you look at her unique passive, if all allies have the power attribute, grant the Crimson Blood buff to defender allies at the beginning of the battle. So this right here would be like why you might be tempted to summon on the special banner that's coming up, where you can choose your character for the Yuno, because Yuno is a very good debuffer to run on a all mono red team. And right here, if all allies have the power attribute or are red, it grants the Crimson Blood buff to the defender allies. And what that's going to do is if HP falls below 30% of max HP, grants self the immortality buff for 1 turn, which is just a nice little addition right there. And then for her passive, LR +2, when you get 2 dupes into her, at the start of a turn grants 10% of own max HP as HP recovery to all allies for each instance of continuous damage inflicted on an enemy. And then at LR +5, at the start of a turn grants 10% of own max HP as HP recovery to all allies for each instance of continuous damage inflicted to the enemy, just like before. And then also increases lifesteal effect by 100% on special move. So that is really good, because granting them that much extra lifesteal for all allies, bro, your team is not going to go down, and you are going to, of course, be able to reduce Asta's health, but then as soon as he does his AoE attack, he's back up to full, right? So it's just like having her actually max duped is kind of worth it for a general pool unit, which is unusual. But yeah, those are all the characters coming for Season 5 that we know about so far. Once again, I will say Witch Queen is not 100% confirmed because we don't have a banner image, but that would just make the most logical sense. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching. Peace!